The fleet expected a battle, but humanity sent just one ship. The stars hung like frozen fireflies in the void, their light cold and distant. The Eidolon, humanity's last and only ship, drifted silently through the black expanse, its hull scarred and pitted from centuries of travel. It was a relic, a ghost of a bygone era when humanity had dreamed of conquering the stars. Now it was a tomb, carrying the last remnants of a species that had long since forgotten its purpose. Captain Elias Veyra stood on the observation deck, his hands clasped behind his back. The glass before him reflected his gaunt face, the deep shadows under his eyes betraying the weight of his burden. He had been awake for days, poring over the ship's logs, trying to make sense of the mission that had brought them here. The Eidolon had been sent to the edge of known space, to a place called the Veil, where no ship had ever returned. The fleet had expected a battle, a grand confrontation with an unknown enemy. But humanity had sent just one ship, and Elias was beginning to understand why. The Veil was not a place. It was a presence. The first sign had come 3 days ago, when the ship's sensors had detected a faint signal emanating from the darkness. It was a whisper, a fragment of sound that seemed to echo in the mind rather than the ears. The crew had dismissed it as a glitch, a malfunction of the ancient systems. But Elias had felt it. A cold, creeping sensation that slithered up his spine and settled in the back of his mind. It was watching them. The signal grew stronger as they approached the source, a pulsing rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the beating of their hearts. The crew began to report strange occurrences. Shadows moving in the corners of their vision, whispers in empty corridors, the feeling of being followed. Elias had ordered the ship's AI, a sentient program called Aura, to scan for any anomalies, but Aura had found nothing, or perhaps it had chosen not to. The first death came on the 4th day. Ensign Kara Voss, a young engineer, had been found in the engine room, her body twisted and broken as if she had been crushed by an invisible force. Her face was frozen in a mask of terror, her eyes wide and unseeing. The crew had whispered of accidents, of the dangers of working in zero gravity, but Elias knew better. He had seen the marks on her skin, the faint, almost imperceptible patterns that seemed to writhe and shift when he looked at them too closely. The second death came soon after. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the ship's communications officer, had been found in his quarters, his throat slit from ear to ear. The blood had pooled around him, forming a perfect circle. There was no sign of a struggle, no indication that he had fought back. It was as if he had simply allowed it to happen. The crew began to mutter of madness, of the toll that the long journey had taken on their minds. But Elias knew the truth. The Veil was not just a presence, it was alive. The ship's logs told a story that Elias could barely comprehend. The Eidolon had been sent to the Veil not to fight, but to deliver a message that had been encoded in the ship's systems, hidden even from its captain. Elias had spent hours deciphering the code, his fingers trembling as he typed. When the final piece fell into place, he felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. The message was a warning, a plea. The Veil was not an enemy to be fought, but a force to be appeased. It was a being of unimaginable power, a consciousness that existed beyond the boundaries of time and space. It had been watching humanity for millennia, waiting for the moment when they would reach out into the void. And now it had chosen the Eidolon as its vessel. The crew began to turn on each other, their minds unraveling under the strain. They spoke of voices in the walls, of dreams that felt more real than waking life. Some claimed to have seen the dead walking the corridors, their eyes hollow and their mouths twisted in silent screams. Elias tried to maintain order, but he could feel the Veil's influence growing stronger. It was in the air, in the walls, in the very fabric of the ship. It was inside him. The final revelation came when Elias discovered the true purpose of the Eidolon. It was not a ship, but a sacrifice. Humanity had known that the Veil could not be defeated, only delayed. The Eidolon had been sent to buy time, to keep the Veil at bay, while the rest of the species retreated into hiding. But the Veil had grown impatient. It wanted more than a ship, it wanted a host. Elias stood in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The Veil's presence was overwhelming now, a suffocating weight that pressed down on his chest. He could feel it in his mind, a cold, alien intelligence that whispered promises of power and immortality. It wanted him to surrender, to let it in, and part of him wanted to. The part that was tired, that had seen too much death and despair. But another part, a small, stubborn part, refused. He activated the ship's self-destruct sequence, his fingers moving with a calm he did not feel. The countdown began, the numbers flashing on the screen. 10 minutes, enough time for the crew to escape, if they could. Elias knew he would not be joining them. The veil would not let him go, but he could deny it its prize. The crew fled to the escape pods, their faces pale and drawn. Elias watched them go, his heart heavy with guilt and regret. He had failed them, but perhaps in the end he could give them a chance to live, to warn the others, to prepare for the day when the veil would come again. The countdown reached 0, and the Eidolon was consumed in a blaze of light. The veil's presence was torn apart, its whispers silenced. But Elias knew it was not gone. It could never be gone. It was out there waiting, and one day it would return. The moral of the story is clear. Some forces are beyond our understanding, and some battles cannot be won. The true horror lies not in the unknown, but in the realization that we are powerless against it. And yet, even in the face of such terror, there is a spark of hope, a refusal to surrender, to give in to despair. It is that spark that defines us, that makes us human, and it is that spark that will keep us alive, even in the darkest of times.